And welcome to Planet Coaster 2, transforming your theming skills for amazing parks. Now I have this water park, and I had an area where I wanted to bring something different to the park. So I had these levels of paths, and I thought, what if I build a platform on a higher platform level that looks quite good. So the initial idea was get the foundation going, get some rocks around. So I used the editing brush to get all the rocks around, and then I got the platform on the platform, and I extended this platform so that I could bring in facilities like food, drink, toilets, etc. I then started working on this water slide so that all the people in my park would come to this attractions because it would have different levels of excitement and fear factors. I then went ahead and actually tested this ride beforehand, so I got a feeling from it. So I got a feeling that what fear factor it would become before I finished it. Now I didn't want to build my foundations and stuff before. I wanted to finish my rides before I went about doing the foundations. I think this is very important actually when you're doing a theme for a park. You make sure you do that, make sure you have the basics there, and by actually building the building and then doing the slides and stuff can be a bit hard if you have a lot of foundations and stuff around this. For instance, what I wanted in this was actually rocks around this building. Already had this idea where I wanted this sphere in the Ringo, which this was going to be the least fear factor ride, and it's going to have this sphere in the middle and then we'll have the rocks around it. But it was important to get this foundation, I felt. And once I tested it, I then did the third water slide, and that had a very high fear factor as well. And then I was ready to start on doing my building. Then I put down the food and drink facilities and maybe a toilet, etc. Now I realized that I couldn't actually do everything because some of these things were obstructed by the other rides, but I only needed 2 anyway, and I connected the power and I made sure the stones were positioned correctly, etc. And then I actually started on the wall foundation. Now with the wall foundation, I actually decided to just have this as a guide for me to put the rocks on. So I needed to make sure that the rock building was different to this so that I could delete the actual wall foundation later. Once I placed the wall foundation down, I actually wanted to select some of the facilities that were in the actual building. I wanted to select all the walls around it so that I could split it from the main building foundation. This was because I wanted, once I had my rocks and they were a separate building to the wall foundation, I wanted to delete the wall foundation so that the rocks would remain. But if I separated the facilities of the buildings, well then, then that wouldn't be deleted. They would still remain and all the other walls would be deleted, and the rock buildings that I'll build later will remain. Then I did some extra pathing just so that people could get to one location to the other, no one would be stuck, etc. I then started to put rocks around the foundation, and I wanted initially to size them to quite a high size so that this was the basics. Then I used some of the advanced move tools to really fiddle around with how I could maybe just make them part of the rock building. Sometimes using just the move tool, it actually does this thing where it adds to the other building, which you don't really want. You want to keep them separate, so just be aware of that. If you're making a theme and you want the building separate, just make sure it doesn't add to the other building. Then I decided to put rocks around the actual slides so that I could start making some tunnels. This just made it look a bit more authentic and, you know, cool looking. I then realized I needed some pillars, otherwise this would look ridiculous. And I started to do this, and I sort of was a bit unexpected because I thought, oh, this actually looks like a sea creature of some sort. Maybe a sea serpent, but not quite a sea serpent because it's made of rock. But it's a rock sea monster, basically. And I decided actually you could have maybe 6 legs, so I went with it. And maybe this started to look a bit like 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, where the monster sunk the ship, etc. and they explore the ship, it's a submarine, etc. But it might look a bit like the monster. Anyway, I started adjusting the legs, etc. And once I had a better idea how they looked, etc., I made sure that I kept going like this until I had 6 legs. I copied, pasted legs, I deleted some or to make it look a bit better, etc., and I added to some legs. Once the legs were good, I added to the bottom of the creature so that this didn't look fake. And I also had to adjust some of the rocks around just so that they didn't collide with the other slides. And I also added a bit onto the side there too, just so it looked a bit more realistic, etc., that it copied the other side a bit and made look good. Once this was done, I realized that actually some of the inside I had to adjust because it was overlapping with some of the platforms, etc. Some of the rocks were interfering with the facilities, and I needed to move them slightly so that they wouldn't. I redid some of the facilities because I thought actually I could put a toilet in there and then maybe a food place and actually put vending machines later on the sides. This would mean that I would have everything in that building, etc. I then realized that some of the rocks were interfering with some of the stairs, so I started moving some of those with the advanced move tool, and I kept changing things around. Some I had to size down because by moving one rock it was interfering with the slides, etc. So just adjusting things, making sure things were looking good, that you didn't have crowds going into rocks, etc. It all looked realistic. I then did the bottom sphere. I thought there were actually rocks getting in the way there, so I sorted that out. I made sure that they were pushed down or to the side. Once that was done, I went ahead and did some colouring of the slides, and I tried to get the right colour that I wanted, etc. I think this is quite important actually. It gives you a bit more customized difference in your theme park, because you don't want to be building something that has the same style all the way through your park. You want to change it up a bit, but at the same time it's always good to keep some colors the same throughout the park, so that you have this trending theme, but also differentiate a bit slightly to the other areas of the park. Always makes it look a bit more unique. Once I did that, I did all the vending machines, made sure they were all placed, and I made sure that no rocks were in the way of them. I then decided to actually go and test these rides. I wanted to make sure that there was no existing rock still that we had to move, and found out that there were, so this is always good. Test your ride, make sure the theme looks good, make sure it all looks good, and adjust it again. Then I decided to put greenery around the rocks, so on top of the rocks, etc., just to make it look a bit better and interesting. I also moved things around after I did them. I added some extra foliage and stuff so that it looked a bit more authentic and real, or if there were gaps that I missed, I put some extra foliage around. I then started doing the eyes to the monster. I thought, well, the actual slides coming out of his mouth, that looks quite good, because it looks like he's got 3 tongues or something. And then I decided on the eyes, and I moved them so that they were in position, etc. I did find, though, when I was putting them in position, it was a bit awkward. So by using the advanced tool, this helped. And also I also wanted to align them, so I had to duplicate one, was easier, and then delete the other. And then it felt like I couldn't quite align it exactly to the rock, so actually putting them in place and then going, okay, well, what do I do here? Okay, well, I'll just have to put them as close as I can, and then I decided to actually put rocks around them so that it actually looked a bit more real. Once I did that, I put some lights on the eyes, which actually I changed later on. I then put lights inside the building. I then went with different effects, and I realized actually the fire didn't really work because it was sea creatures, so I then decided to actually go for something like water. So water jets looked good. I then did this all around his mouth so that it looked like he was spitting out of its mouth. It made it a bit more, I don't know, monstrous, a bit more interesting too. And I went with this and I duplicated it all around. Once this was done and I liked the look of it, I realized actually there wasn't any water coming to the slide, so I had to make sure that there was a filter. That was basics, but anyway, I think I was so immersed in this creation that I forgot about that. Then I decided to put mist down, and I used a smallish medium mist around the pool, and then I decided actually I'll go on the outskirts of it as well, make it look a bit cool, like the mist of the Miri monster coming up from the depths or something like that. And then I thought it would be cool to have it on the entrance where the people come in to go to the ride and where the facilities are. Some decoration inside, it made it look a bit cooler, although I wanted the main theme to be obviously rocks around, so I didn't need to do too much, I thought, to make it look cool. Some of the rocks I thought were a bit small, so I changed those sizes of them just to make a bit of a difference and variation. I thought some of the rocks still below were in the way, so I changed all that, etc. I then used some jets in the sphere so that looked quite cool. Then the use of lights on the eyes was important. I thought this would give it a bit of a cool effect. So the other lights I deleted because I just didn't think they were actually shining at all. And these lights, if I actually put them inside, right behind the lights, it actually showed a really cool effect. And so I went with these really. And then I started putting lights down around the monsters, so they were spotlights essentially, and I put extra lights onto the monster. I put them all around just to experiment how they look, and it was very important to get this at night time because then you know exactly what's looking like what and what's looking good, etc. I then wanted to make sure the inside actually looked good. I put a bit of extra lighting and stuff inside, and the entrance actually looked good. This was essential. Then the barriers to these paths were having to be done. And once I did that, I added even more lighting to the entrance to make it even more hyped up and looking good. And then I went about going into the actual entrance, and I decided to actually put some speakers down. Now, these speakers, I didn't put any sequences or anything to it because you don't need to, and the same with the effects and stuff. I didn't put any sequences to the rides or anything. Didn't think it needed it on this, and I just changed the music of the speakers here to essentially have more of a, I don't know, I put it as a rock thing, but you could put it any theme or any music you want. And I thought this was quite good, so I put a few of these on the rock, so when the people going upstairs they hear it as well. And that was it, really. Now, some of my other themes I've done are on aqua themes, and this is quite an interesting one. It has lots of facilities. It has 2 different platforms. So there has ones that you can have mats and go down on, and then it has one that is more of a Ringo boosting one that goes up. And then I have other themes like the cafeteria. That's quite an effective thing because I didn't want to have rides here, but there is a pool right nearby. And also I've actually done the tree building, which had trees growing on top of it, and you had all the foliage coming down around it. I used actually walls on that and then did the foliage around the tree, etc. But I think it looks quite cool, etc. And you know, you can experiment with all these things. You can have an idea and then realize, actually, yeah, I could turn it into this or that, etc. So just play with those ideas. See what you come up with. And on the side note, this is a weather system I've actually been working on in Unreal Engine. I've been starting game development, and it's not actually that hard to do. Obviously you do need to know a bit about coding, but you can learn it quite easily. And if you guys are looking into going into game development, well, this asset will help you massively in terms of setting up your game and using this asset straight away into your levels and having some weather effects that you can use. So I hope you enjoyed that video, and I'll see you in the next one. Don't forget to subscribe.